In the pre-dawn hours of August 6, 2024, an eerie calm settles over the border between Ukraine's Sumy region and Russia's Kursk Oblast. The stillness is shattered as Ukrainian forces launch a daring cross-border attack, catching Russian defenses completely off guard. Approximately 1,000 Ukrainian troops, supported by a formidable array of tanks and armored vehicles, surge across the frontier in a coordinated assault. The Ukrainian offensive moves with lightning speed, exploiting gaps in Russian border security. Within hours, reports flood social media platforms, with civilian eyewitnesses describing columns of Ukrainian armor thundering past their villages. Russian military bloggers frantically post updates, their tone shifting from disbelief to alarm as the gravity of the situation becomes apparent. Ukrainian forces, operating with precision honed by years of conflict, swiftly breach the first line of Russian defenses. The sound of intense firefights echoes across the countryside as stunned Russian border units struggle to mount an effective resistance. Ukrainian electronic warfare systems jam Russian communications, sowing confusion and hampering attempts to coordinate a response. By midday, Ukrainian troops have penetrated at least 2 Russian defensive lines and overwhelmed a key stronghold. The rapid advance sends shockwaves through Russian military command structures, exposing glaring weaknesses in border security and response protocols. Frantic calls for reinforcements go out as local Russian commanders grapple with the unfolding crisis. In Kiev, Ukrainian military officials maintain a tight-lipped silence, neither confirming nor denying the operation. However, satellite imagery and geolocated footage circulating online paint a clear picture of Ukrainian forces pushing deeper into Kursk Oblast. The element of surprise, coupled with meticulous planning, has given Ukraine a significant early advantage. As night falls on August 6th, the full extent of the Ukrainian incursion begins to emerge. Reports indicate that Ukrainian armored units have advanced up to 10 kilometers into Russian territory, along the 38K Zo-30 route. The operation's success thus far represents a major intelligence and operational planning achievement for Ukraine, demonstrating their ability to execute complex, cross-border mechanized operations. The incursion sends ripples of alarm through Moscow, where officials scramble to formulate a response. The Kremlin's initial statements are contradictory, attempting to downplay the severity of the situation while simultaneously portraying it as a significant escalation by Ukraine. This messaging confusion reflects the shock and disarray caused by the unexpected assault. As Ukrainian forces consolidate their gains and prepare for the next phase of the operation, the world watches with bated breath. The audacious move by Ukraine has fundamentally altered the dynamics of the conflict, bringing the war directly to Russian soil for the first time. International observers speculate on the potential ramifications, with some analysts suggesting that the incursion could mark a turning point in the long-running conflict. The Institute for the Study of War releases a preliminary assessment, noting that Ukrainian forces have demonstrated a level of operational sophistication that caught even seasoned military experts off guard. Dawn breaks on August 7th, revealing the full extent of Ukraine's territorial gains. Geolocated footage confirms that Ukrainian armored vehicles have advanced up to 10 kilometers into Kursk Oblast along the 38K Zo-30 route. The footage shows a column of tanks and infantry fighting vehicles moving swiftly through the Russian countryside, their progress seemingly unimpeded by significant resistance. Reports begin to trickle in of Ukrainian forces capturing key settlements. Local sources confirm the fall of Nikolaevo Darino, and Sverdlikovo to advancing Ukrainian units. The speed of the advance suggests that Russian defensive positions in the area were either undermanned or caught completely unprepared for such a bold incursion. Social media platforms buzz with activity as residents of the affected areas share their experiences. One Twitter user in Sverdlikovo writes, "Ukrainian tanks just rolled through our village, no fighting. Russian soldiers retreated hours ago. What's happening?" The strategic implications of Ukraine's territorial gains become increasingly apparent as news breaks of a significant capture. Ukrainian forces seize control of the Sudzha checkpoint, a key border crossing point between Russia and Ukraine. More crucially, they secure the nearby gas distribution station, a vital component of Russia's energy export infrastructure. The capture of the Sudzha gas metering station sends shockwaves through European energy markets, Analysts scramble to assess the potential disruption to gas flows and the impact on Russia's ability to fulfill its export commitments. The move is seen as a calculated strike at the heart of Russia's economic leverage over Europe. At the Sudzha checkpoint, a dramatic scene unfolds. Ukrainian troops, moving with practiced efficiency, quickly overwhelm the surprised Russian border guards. In a significant blow to Russian morale, over 40 Russian soldiers surrender without a fight. Video footage shows the captured troops, looking dazed and dejected, being processed by Ukrainian forces. The Ukrainian advance continues unabated, with mechanized units pushing ever deeper into Russian territory. By midday, unconfirmed reports suggest that the spearhead of the Ukrainian force has penetrated up to 20 kilometers beyond the border. The lack of effective Russian counterattacks fuels speculation about the state of Russia's military readiness in the region. In Moscow, the mood shifts from initial dismissal to growing alarm. The Kremlin spokesperson, in a hastily arranged press conference, attempts to downplay the severity of the situation. "Our armed forces are taking all necessary measures to repel this provocation," he asserts, his voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. "We have full confidence in our military's ability to restore control over our sovereign territory." However, the reality on the ground tells a different story. Russian military bloggers, typically staunch supporters of the government's narrative, begin to voice their frustration and concern. One prominent blogger writes, "Where is our air force? Where are our reserves? The enemy is advancing unopposed while our leadership remains silent." The growing chorus of criticism from these influential voices puts additional pressure on the Kremlin to respond decisively. August 8th dawns with a palpable sense of tension across the region. Fighting continues for a third day as Ukrainian forces push even deeper into Russian territory. Reports from local sources and military analysts paint a picture of a well-coordinated and relentless advance. Ukrainian soldiers, emboldened by their initial success, reportedly advance up to 35 kilometers beyond the border. The Institute for the Study of War releases a startling report, estimating that Ukrainian forces have seized control of approximately 45 square kilometers within Kursk Oblast. This territorial gain, while modest in absolute terms, represents a significant psychological and strategic victory for Ukraine. It demonstrates their ability to not only breach Russian defenses, but to hold and expand their positions on enemy soil. Throughout the operation, Ukrainian forces showcase their mastery of modern warfare techniques, particularly in the realm of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. Drone footage circulating on social media platforms provides a bird's-eye view of the conflict, offering unprecedented insight into the tactics and progress of the Ukrainian advance. In a dramatic demonstration of their drone capabilities, Ukrainian forces reportedly down a Russian Mi-28 attack helicopter over Kursk Oblast using a first-person view FPV drone. The incident, captured on video and quickly disseminated online, sends shockwaves through military circles. It highlights the evolving nature of warfare and the potential vulnerabilities of traditional military assets to low-cost, highly maneuverable drones. The successful use of drones extends beyond combat operations. Ukrainian forces employ UAVs for reconnaissance, identifying weak points in Russian defenses and guiding artillery strikes with pinpoint accuracy. This technological edge allows them to maintain their momentum, despite being outnumbered in terms of conventional forces. As the day progresses, reports emerge of Ukrainian units approaching the outskirts of Sudzha, a key city in the region. The potential fall of Sudzha to Ukrainian forces would represent a significant escalation, potentially forcing Moscow to consider more drastic measures to contain the incursion. Russian attempts to counter the Ukrainian advance appear disjointed and ineffective. Eyewitness accounts describe hastily assembled roadblocks and sporadic artillery fire, but no coordinated counteroffensive. The apparent lack of a coherent Russian response fuels speculation about command and control issues within the Russian military hierarchy. International observers watch the unfolding events with a mixture of concern and fascination. The unprecedented nature of the incursion, a state actively invading Russian territory, raises questions about the potential for wider escalation. NATO countries, while publicly maintaining a cautious stance, privately expressed surprise at the effectiveness of Ukrainian operations. In Kyiv, Ukrainian officials maintained their policy of strategic ambiguity, neither confirming nor denying direct involvement in the Kursk operation. However, the mood in the capital is one of cautious optimism. One senior defense official, speaking on condition of anonymity, remarks, "We have always said that Russia must feel the consequences of its aggression. Now, perhaps, they will understand the true cost of their actions." The morning of August 9th, 2024, brings a seismic shift in the Kremlin's response to the Ukrainian incursion. In a televised address, Russian President Vladimir Putin declares a federal emergency in the Kursk region. His face stern, voice tinged with barely contained anger, Putin vows to defend every inch of Russian soil and promises swift retribution against the Ukrainian aggressors. Within hours of the declaration, a flurry of activity grips the Russian military apparatus. Convoys of military vehicles, their engines roaring, thunder along highways leading to the conflict zone. Satellite imagery captures the movement of Grad rocket launchers, artillery pieces, and columns of tanks being rushed to reinforce the beleaguered Russian defenses. Social media platforms buzz with videos uploaded by Russian civilians, showing long lines of military vehicles passing through their towns. One user in Kursk City writes, "It's like the whole army is on the move. Never seen anything like this before." Meanwhile, the humanitarian situation in the affected areas rapidly deteriorates. Russian authorities report that around 3,000 civilians have been evacuated from the conflict zone. Local officials struggle to manage the sudden influx of displaced people, with makeshift shelters hastily established in schools and community centers. Eyewitness accounts paint a chaotic picture of the evacuation process. Natalia, a 43-year-old teacher from a village near Sudzha, describes the scene. "We were given just minutes to pack our essentials. The sound of explosions in the distance grew louder as we boarded the buses. Many of us left everything behind, not knowing if we'll ever see our homes again." The declaration of a federal emergency marks a significant escalation in Russia's official stance on the conflict. It allows for the mobilization of additional resources and the implementation of extraordinary measures to address the crisis. However, it also serves as a tacit admission of the gravity of the situation, potentially undermining the Kremlin's carefully crafted image of strength and control. As Russian reinforcements pour into the region, Ukrainian forces continue their relentless advance. Reports from multiple sources indicate that Ukrainian troops are on the verge of fully controlling the city of Sudzha, a key gas transit center. The potential loss of Sudzha would not only represent a significant military setback for Russia, but could also have far-reaching economic implications, given the city's importance in the regional energy infrastructure. Ukrainian drone footage, shared widely on social media platforms, shows Ukrainian armored vehicles moving through the outskirts of Sudzha. The absence of significant Russian resistance is notable, suggesting that the initial defenders may have already withdrawn or been neutralized. The Institute for the Study of War releases an updated assessment, noting that the Ukrainian operation has exceeded all expectations in terms of its speed and effectiveness. The report highlights the potential strategic implications of controlling Sudzha, stating that it could significantly disrupt Russian logistics and potentially impact gas flows to Europe. As night falls on August 9th, the situation remains fluid and tense. The influx of Russian reinforcements raises the specter of a major counteroffensive, while Ukrainian forces work to consolidate their gains. The international community watches with growing concern, fearing the potential for further escalation. In Washington, D.C., a senior Pentagon official, speaking on condition of anonymity, expresses surprise at the Ukrainian military's performance. "They've demonstrated a level of operational sophistication that, frankly, we didn't think they were capable of. This incursion has fundamentally altered our assessment of Ukraine's capabilities." The strategic objectives driving Ukraine's bold operation into Kursk Oblast reveal a multifaceted approach that extends far beyond mere territorial gains. At its core, the incursion serves as a calculated counter to Russia's recent advances in eastern Ukraine, particularly around key areas like Pokrovsk, Toretsk, and Chasiv Yar in the Donetsk region. By opening a new front on Russian soil, Ukrainian military planners aim to force Moscow to divert precious resources and attention away from their offensive operations. The psychological impact of the incursion cannot be overstated. For the first time since World War II, Russian civilians find themselves directly in the path of an invading force. This stark reality challenges the carefully cultivated image of Vladimir Putin as an infallible protector of the Russian people. Hannah Shelest, a senior fellow at the Center for European Policy Analysis, notes, "This unexpected assault could significantly diminish Putin's image as a formidable guardian of Russian citizens." Beyond the immediate military and psychological effects, the Kursk operation appears designed to strengthen Ukraine's hand in any future negotiations with Moscow. Mihailo Podolyak, a senior advisor to President Volodymyr Zelensky, hinted at this strategic calculus, suggesting that such attacks in border regions would lead Russia to begin to recognize that the war is gradually encroaching into Russian territory. This shift in perspective could potentially alter the dynamics of any peace talks, forcing Russia to reconsider its maximalist demands. The operational aspects of the incursion demonstrate Ukraine's growing military sophistication. By achieving operational surprise and penetrating multiple Russian defensive lines, Ukrainian forces have exposed critical vulnerabilities in Russia's border security. This success not only provides valuable intelligence for future operations, but also serves to test and probe Russian defensive capabilities along other sections of the border. A key objective of the Kursk operation appears to be the disruption of Russian logistics and supply lines. The capture of the Sudzha gas metering station and attacks on fuel depots strike at the heart of Russia's ability to sustain its war effort. By targeting these critical nodes, Ukraine aims to create cascading effects that could hamper Russian military operations far beyond the immediate area of the incursion. The use of advanced tactics and technologies, particularly in the realm of drone warfare, showcases Ukraine's continued adaptation and innovation on the battlefield. The successful deployment of first-person view, FPV drones, to down Russian helicopters sends a clear message about Ukraine's evolving capabilities and willingness to employ asymmetric tactics against a numerically superior foe. International reactions to the incursion have been carefully measured, with many Western allies maintaining a studied silence. However, the tacit support from the United States, particularly regarding the use of U.S.-supplied weapons in cross-border operations, suggests a shift in the strategic calculus of Ukraine's partners. This implicit backing could embolden Ukraine to consider further operations aimed at bringing the conflict closer to Russian soil. The impact of the Kursk incursion on critical infrastructure underscores the strategic importance of such targets in modern warfare. The capture of the Sudzha gas metering station, a crucial component of Russia's gas export network, sends shockwaves through European energy markets. Analysts scramble to assess the potential disruption to gas flows and the implications for Russia's ability to fulfill its export commitments. One energy expert notes, "The seizure of Sudzha could give Ukraine significant leverage in future negotiations, potentially altering the dynamics of the entire conflict." Transportation networks in the region face severe disruption as Ukrainian forces advance along major highways, particularly the 38K030 Sudzha-Koronovo route. Satellite imagery reveals long lines of stalled civilian vehicles and abandoned military convoys, highlighting the chaos engulfing the area. Local residents report widespread fuel shortages and empty grocery store shelves as supply chains break down. The capture of the Sudzha checkpoint deals a significant blow to cross-border traffic and customs operations. High-resolution imagery shows extensive damage to buildings and infrastructure at the crossing point. Russian officials estimate it could take months to restore full functionality, even if the area is reclaimed. This disruption has far-reaching economic implications, impacting trade flows and further isolating the region. Reports of Ukrainian drone attacks on military airfields raise concerns about Russia's ability to provide air support in the conflict zone. A fire at a facility in the Lipetsk region, where fighter planes, including MiG-29s and Su-34s, are believed to be based, potentially hampers Russian air operations. The governor of Lipetsk confirms damage to unspecified electrical infrastructure, suggesting a coordinated effort to degrade Russian military capabilities in the area. The presence of the Kursk nuclear power plant, one of the largest in Russia, adds a layer of complexity and danger to the unfolding situation. Located approximately 40 kilometers west of Kursk city, The plant's proximity to the conflict zone raises alarm bells among international observers. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, issues a statement urging all parties to exercise extreme caution and respect the integrity of nuclear facilities. Ukrainian military planners appear to have factored the nuclear plant into their operational calculations. Drone footage shows Ukrainian forces carefully avoiding direct engagement near the facility, instead focusing on cutting off access routes and isolating the area. This approach suggests a nuanced strategy aimed at neutralizing the plant's strategic value without risking a catastrophic incident. Nevertheless, the potential for unintended consequences looms large. A senior NATO official, speaking on condition of anonymity, expresses grave concern. Any military action near a nuclear facility carries inherent risks. The situation at Kursk is particularly volatile given the rapidly evolving nature of the conflict. The official goes on to stress the importance of maintaining open communication channels to prevent misunderstandings that could lead to catastrophic escalation. As the incursion enters its fourth day, the international community grapples with the implications of this unprecedented development. The United Nations Security Council convenes an emergency session to address the situation, with heated exchanges between Russian and Ukrainian representatives. The Russian ambassador accuses Ukraine of blatant aggression against a sovereign state, while his Ukrainian counterpart counters by framing the operation as a defensive measure against ongoing Russian hostility. Western nations, while publicly calling for de-escalation, privately express a mix of surprise and cautious approval at Ukraine's bold move. A senior European diplomat, speaking off the record, remarks, "This operation has fundamentally altered the dynamics of the conflict. It forces us to reassess our understanding of Ukraine's capabilities and Russia's vulnerabilities." The media landscape becomes a battleground in its own right, with conflicting narratives vying for dominance. Russian state media initially downplays the extent of the incursion, describing it as a minor border skirmish, quickly contained by Russian forces. However, as evidence mounts and eyewitness accounts flood social media platforms, this narrative becomes increasingly untenable. Russian military bloggers, typically staunch supporters of the government line, begin to voice frustration and criticism. One prominent blogger writes, "Our leadership has failed us. How could they allow this to happen on our own soil?" The growing chorus of dissent from these influential voices puts additional pressure on the Kremlin to respond decisively. International media outlets struggle to verify information in real time, relying heavily on geolocated footage and reports from Russian military bloggers. The New York Times publishes a detailed analysis of drone footage, confirming Ukrainian advances deep into Russian territory. The BBC interviews residents of Sudzha, painting a vivid picture of a city on edge as Ukrainian forces approach its outskirts. Military analysts and think tanks work overtime to assess the strategic implications of the Kursk incursion. The Royal United Services Institute, RUSE, releases a preliminary report, noting that the operation demonstrates a level of operational sophistication that challenges prevailing assumptions about the balance of power in the region. The report goes on to suggest that the incursion could mark a turning point in the conflict, forcing Russia to divert significant resources away from its offensive operations in eastern Ukraine. As night falls on August 9th, the world watches with bated breath, wondering how Russia will respond to this bold challenge to its territorial integrity. The Kursk incursion has not only altered the physical landscape of the conflict, but has also reshaped the psychological and strategic terrain. It forces both sides to reassess their capabilities and vulnerabilities, potentially opening new avenues for negotiation or escalation. The coming days will likely prove crucial in determining the long-term implications of this audacious operation. Will it lead to a broader conflagration, drawing in more regional players and risking a wider war? Or could it paradoxically create an opening for diplomatic engagement, as both sides recognize the potential costs of further escalation? One thing is clear: the Ukrainian incursion into Kursk Oblast has shattered long-held assumptions about the nature of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It demonstrates Ukraine's growing military prowess and strategic acumen, while exposing vulnerabilities in Russia's defense posture. As the situation continues to evolve, The international community must navigate a precarious balance between supporting Ukraine's right to self-defense and preventing a potentially catastrophic escalation. The events unfolding in Kursk serve as a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of modern warfare and the potential for rapid shifts in the balance of power. They underscore the critical importance of diplomatic channels and international cooperation in managing conflicts that threaten regional stability and global security. As the world holds its collective breath, the actions taken in the coming hours and days may well shape the course of European geopolitics for years to come.